Good morning, She's Velvet Steel. I have brought on somebody special today. We promised that we would be bringing some couples on this month. June is kind of a marriage month, lots of weddings happening. And so we thought we'd come on and just share some behind the scenes of our marriages. Not all of it. You don't want to see all of it.
Not the full curtain.
Just parts of it, yeah. So this is my husband, Eric. Hi, Kathy Kelly.
Hi, everybody.
Speaking of which, Kathy and her husband, Doug, were on last week. And Kathy, didn't you say that you were married 46 years and you want to have separate bedrooms? I remember hearing that. Because you want to read and it's keeping Doug up. I did see that. But Kathy and Doug talked about communication and just little hint. If anybody has done something successfully for 46 years, you should probably listen up.
Right.
So I was listening, Kathy. Unfortunately, you were a little glitchy, so I say we call a redo and hear from you because I know Doug likes to talk and I love hearing his wisdom, but I think that there's some more hidden wisdom in you. So
bring it on, Kathy.
Anyway,
come on.
thanks for sharing your wisdom and parts of your marriage too. So super helpful for those of us. So we've been married for how long?
Let's see. Married in 2000. That's the key. It helps me to remember. So we'll be 18 years this November.
Yeah, so we are in our 18th year. Although I will say we met when we were 14. So story coming on that one. But first,
I was
Sonia,
16,
hi. Yeah, robbing the cradle. Sonia, hello. Glad you're on. Hi,
Sonia.
Danielle. Hola, mi amiga. She's speaking Spanish today.
Oh.
So, okay, so in our 18th year of marriage, but I've known him since I was 14. I'm 39, in case you're wondering. So I've had him in my life for 25 years, longer than when I didn't. So I only kind of remember most of my life with him in it in some capacity. There's definitely a few things that we've learned. One is, girls, if you're single, set the bar low. When it comes to expectations. That's what we're talking about today is expectations. If he doesn't do this, or I want him to do this and he never does this, and if she doesn't do that and she never does this, let's talk about expectations. But I set the bar low. Yeah.
Tell us about that. What do you mean?
Okay. So the first time that Eric and I met, well, I should say the first time we talked, I was super skeptical of boys. And I,
rightly so,
at the time was kind of feeling like they might all be jerks. And had kind of started to believe that and started talking to Eric. So I was very walls up. So I was not doing anything to impress him. I was not going over the top. I was not flirty. I was not batting my eyes. I was not dressing nicely. I was not being super sweet. I was not vying for his attention. And isn't that the opposite of what we do oftentimes? And let me just say, single girl tip right here. What you do before you're married to get him, you're going to have to do after you're married to keep him. So be careful. All right. So I set the bar low because when he met me in person, I was wearing baggy mesh shorts, slides, you know, like the sandals that you slide into, probably long socks scrunched down because that was kind of the look of the day, and a big baggy camp shirt. My hair was much like it is now because I just worked out. So it was probably frizzy ponytail and falling out partially, no makeup. And that's how he met me. And he thought I was amazing.
True.
So what's really great for me.
Basketball. That was amazing.
Okay. So see, maybe it was more about something that I was versus what I was trying to look like.
You were really cute in basketball gear, so that was kind of the other thing.
Yeah. Okay. So what's great is I'm super sweaty right now. Like my tank top is sweaty, my hair is frizzy, probably have some sweat smells going on, and he still likes me. So there you go. Expectations were set low. So now when I shower, I exceed expectations.
Who are you?
Oh my gosh.
And put on some yummy smelling lotion.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yummy smelling lotion. That's a contrast to what the rest of my house smells like with 5 boys apparently. So
always knowing mom.
So I can always exceed expectations. So Eric and I just recently did some premarital counseling with a couple who's getting married in a week and a half. And it's kind of fun. And it takes me back to when we did premarital counseling. An exercise that we did then and then an exercise we did with them was talk about roles and expectations. I didn't really, this isn't anything that you talk about when you're dating, like who's going to vacuum the floor and who handles money, how do you handle money, and what are your expectations for going to bed? Do you want me to go to bed with you? Can I go to bed first? Should the light be out all the time? Who's going to turn off the angry light, I call it? The angry light is the light shining up over your head, so when you're laying in bed, it's just right in your eyes and it makes me angry. So who's going to shut off the angry light?
Right.
So those are all expectations you don't talk about when you're on a date. And so really good things to talk about. Now, it's not too late. Some of you are married and you're fighting over some expectations that maybe have never been said. And so then you can't come to an agreement and you're just kind of stewing inside. So anyway, we did some of those. So do you remember any of the expectations you had for me when we got married, like what my role would be as a wife?
Yeah, I was trying to remember exactly what, because we wrote them down, right? Did we write them all down?
They're in a box outside.
They're in a box somewhere. And it's hard for me to distinguish between what I think they may have been, what I actually put down. I mean, some general ones that kind of come to my mind is that you, just from like a support standpoint, like being a team, that you would be available and supportive and pray for me, pray for us as a team and for our family. I mean, that's one that comes to my mind.
Am I meeting
right
that
away.
Expectation?
You are.
Okay.
You are. Yes,
I put you on the spot to say that live to the world. It's all right, I can take it.
That's right. And some days maybe a little extra from me, which I need. Yes, absolutely. I think, and then on the kind of like chores side of things, if you will, like things we just got to get done that are tasks. I think one of them was that we kind of talked about this in a shared responsibility. Like we have some of the chore to-dos, or if we're talking about like outside like yard work, landscape, we've got maintenance of vehicles, all these different things that we could go through. But I know some of, like one of them for you that I had in my mind was to definitely be on some of the cooking side of things. Now, neither one of us, right, have enjoyed the whole cooking aspect or really love it. You're good at it when you do it, but we don't really love it. But that was one in my mind. So I'm like, I don't have any skills. Gosh, either I'm gonna have to learn these or Jamie's gonna have to own this. And I think that was one in my mind. Like I was willing to share, but that was one that I had for you. Can you please be the cooker of good food, right? So that we have something to eat. And that's just one that comes to my mind right now.
Yeah. You know, I hinted at it before, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm a girl that comes with a package of a lot of expectations, and I have my whole life expectations for myself. And if you're a girl or a guy listening in who has high expectations for yourself, it's likely you have high expectations for other people. And so I've had to learn a lot about expectations. And I want to just make a bold statement to say that probably a lot of your arguments with your spouse are because of unmet, unsaid expectations that you have for them. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be meeting some of those expectations. I'm not saying that all expectations are unrealistic. I think that we have some expectations that are a part of our wiring because they meet a need. And marriage, there are absolutely some needs that need to be met. But one thing that I've been challenged by recently is that my list of needs is probably too long. My list of needs is probably shorter than what I think it will be. So really what those expectations become are just preferences. And so if they're just my preference or my way of doing things, or the way that I think that things should be done, or the way that I think that he should behave, or the way that I think my kids should behave for that matter, all of those are just my preferences. And then it comes really from a belief that my way is the best way, or that if I don't get my way, then I'm not going to be happy, or that my way is the only way. And all three of those things are false. And so when we're looking at our marriage and we're talking about the things that we argue about, I listened to somebody that was sharing one of their arguments, and their argument was about the little thing in the shower that you pull out to make the water come out of the shower head, or you push in to make it come out of the bathtub faucet. And they would argue over whether it needed to be in or out, because she wanted it in so that the water would come out under the faucet. He liked it out because he takes showers every day, and he thought it's just more efficient to just have it come out of the shower. But the reason why she didn't like that is because she liked to test the water under the faucet. So she would lean into the tub to test it under the faucet. And if he left it out, then she was getting drenched. So they fought about this. And they argued about, why can't you just put it in, and why can't, and it seems really silly. And I think before you get married, you're like, I can't even imagine arguing about things like that. But it's those little things on that all add up that I think create little foxholes, little tiny holes in our marriage that then we somehow in our mind go, they don't meet any of my expectations. And what this guy said that really got me was he was saying, really that came down to a preference. And it wasn't a requirement. And he said he kind of had this day where he remembers it shifting, that he remembered before getting out of the shower, hey, I could push this in. And he had this epiphany that if I did that, she's going to feel loved today. How easy is that to push it in so that she feels loved? Because I preferred her preference. And so I loved hearing that, in that my preferences, like I said, I may have it in my mind as an expectation, which means I got to let that expectation go and acknowledge it for what it is. But how cool that he was able to see a simple action of preferring their way as an act of love. I think that is the model that Jesus had in our life.
Right.
Of laying his life down. And I think that's what we're called to. It's not easy. And I'm not saying that expectations shouldn't be talked about. And at that point, if you're talking about them, then you may have to let go of how your need is met. Really, you're talking about needs, right? When you said your expectation for me was to pray for you and to support you, I think you were talking about a need.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So what would you say here recently when we were doing premarital counseling? What would you say to newly married people, or even people that have been married in their first 10 years? What would you say to them about expectations versus preferences and needs?
Yeah, no, that's a big question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is for us just to be aware that that's one of the biggest suitcases we're bringing into the marriage, right? Is these, we all have baggage we're bringing in, and that's one of the big ones we're pulling along with us, are these kind of unconscious expectations that we have. Some that we might even be able to verbalize if we think about it, we get prompted to, right? But that some that are just so subconscious that we have seen modeled by either our dad or our mom or other significant people in our lives that have kind of shaped and formed these thoughts and expectations. And I think sometimes we come in then assuming that the other person, our spouse, is going to have an understanding for that or know those things. And so then we come in not on the same page. I like to use that language a lot. Like, how can we get on the same page? How can we fight to be on the same page, fighting in a good way, fighting for it? And I think that's one of the big things, is just to go, because we even have that conversation now. There's still things after all this time together where we realize, oh, that's not, I didn't realize that was an expectation or something that you really needed from me. And things do change, right? Yeah. Over the years, different seasons, different rhythms of life, that expectations and ways that we really can help to prefer each other and communicate love, fill each other's love tanks. Some of those change throughout time, depending on what we're doing. But I think that the biggest thing to anybody who's either starting a marriage or maybe now you've been married for a long time is to have this kind of awareness that they may not even know that that's an expectation that I have for them. And so is it fair for me to have that, or to hold them to meeting that expectation if they're not even aware of it? And I get right now, just based on our own life, and we're pretty good at communicating with each other. I think we are, we do it a lot, is that I still have things that I'm like, wow, I wasn't realizing that. Or if you had communicated that to me, Jamie, in the past, it wasn't clicking for me. Now that's on me on some level, right? But there's probably some of those gaps that remain that then we have to figure out, what do we do with them? What do we do with the gaps of expectations? And are they a fair expectation? Is it one that can be met? Should I expect the other person to meet it? I think that's another piece of this conversation, right? But biggest thing is awareness. And some of that, like when we do working with this couple recently, some of those questions get prompted. I'm looking over here at a list of things. They may be conversation points that you don't think to talk about prior to, or even you haven't yet. From things that like, well, who's going to gas up the car? Is that an expectation that somebody has for one or the other? Or who's going to handle the finances and actually pay the bills, get online and push the button? Who's going to do that? And are we on the same page? Or maybe it's something like planning vacations, right? That I always look to you for, but some of those things that would be, maybe they evolve over time, but maybe there's still tension points because it hasn't been communicated about. Anyway, those are some things that come to mind, just the idea of awareness to the fact that we probably have some gaps and we need to get on the same page. Well, then how do we now step into doing that?
Yeah. You know, when you said that things change, I think that I wanted to just emphasize that again, because I feel like, especially if you have kids, every season naturally, spring, summer, fall, winter, brings a new rhythm with kids, because their school schedules change, their sports schedules change, whether they're in piano or extracurriculars. Just what is happening in their life affects the rhythm of the family. And so you make adjustments. And I feel like a rhythm that I am becoming just more accustomed to is that pretty much every 3 months, you have to reevaluate lots of things. And you have to shift things around. Because I think if you force the rhythm that you began with into a new season, you're going to be super frustrated. So maybe originally I was hoping that Eric would do half and half, 50% of the chores. But is that a fair expectation when he goes into a new job? Probably not. And I faced that in December with okay, this isn't a fair expectation because the learning curve is high right now. When he has to pour his time, his focus, his attention, his energy into something at a really, really high capacity, it's difficult, especially I think for guys, but Eric specifically, I think it's difficult to remember even to put time, energy, focus, attention into another place. So I think every season has a new rhythm. So I just wanted to emphasize that it's okay to, excuse me, to rediscuss expectations and rework them a little bit.
Yeah.
So expectations across the board, if we could define them as there are desired or hoped for outcome, or our desired hope for behavior.
Can I give you one right now that I have?
Sure. Maybe.
I'm just thinking about this. I always look for an opportunity, everybody, to try to be funny, and that is an expectation that I have that Jamie will cordially laugh and just affirm to me that I'm funny. You know, I have to come up for air. Jamie likes to call it when we're going deep for too long, and so that is an expectation. And you've done pretty well at meeting that. I mean, sometimes I'm not in the right timing of my attempt at humor, maybe like right now, but I do appreciate the fact that she's willing to just go, oh, Eric, I love that about you, you know? So anyway, that's just one for me that has been there from the beginning, and I don't see it really going away, right? Does it meet a need? I don't know, but I do like to feel like I'm funny. Okay.
I do think it makes you,
we're getting serious there.
It makes you feel significant, loved by me.
That's right.
Yeah, girls, just laugh at your husbands, okay? Even if they're not funny.
Amen.
No, you are. That is something. Here's something with expectation. Jen and I talk about this a lot. You know, Jen, she's Velvet Steel Jen. You guys know her and love her. We talk about this a lot. We married them for specific ways about them, that he can't be deep all the time, or he wants to be lighthearted, or he wants to see the positive side of things all the time, and he wants to see the joy and everything, which is a beautiful thing about him. So I can't expect him then to operate in the same way that I do, and I can't want him to, because that part of him is a good balance to me. So sometimes we put expectations on people that are just altogether dumb. Why do we expect them to become something they're not, and to become something God didn't call them to be? I think we have to be careful of that as wives, because I think that we can put an expectation on them that God wouldn't even put on them, and then we're really messed up. So be careful about that. Yeah. So how do we know, because we want to close this up, how do we know whether the expectation is fair, whether the expectation that we have in our mind is realistic? What would you say, Eric? How would you know whether it was fair or realistic?
Yeah. You know, I think there is going to be alignment. Like if you're communicating something to me as an expectation, I think I have to ask myself, well, what am I going to filter this through? What she's communicating right now. And I think for us, you know, as we've had these times of you communicating or vice versa, but expectations, or this is what I was thinking, I thought this was going to be done and done this way, or that you would have this kind of mindset. I think for me, I have to filter it through, well, what is it that by doing this or by thinking this way, what does it communicate? And if I think about it that way, then I want it to be something that shows you that I love you, that I cherish you, that I value you, and I prefer you. And gosh, I don't hit that mark all the time, but I feel like that's the filter I have to go. What does this mean for Jamie if I do this? And maybe it warrants some dialogue as to maybe this isn't realistic right now. I want it to be. This isn't the right timing for it, the right season. I really want this because I see that it's going to help to fill your love tank. But I think that's how I go. God, help me to see it in the light of, is this preferring Jamie above myself? And then, can I do this right now? By your grace, God, can I do this? Can I meet this expectation? Because we know that you shouldn't find or try to fill any hole in your life, in your spouse, or in anybody else other than God himself. Because we know that if we're trying to do that, we're gonna have failures, right and left. We will fail each other. That's the truth. And only God alone is the one who will never fail us. And so I feel like that filter, how do I receive it? Gosh, is this loving and preferring you? God, help me to be that guy who's going to choose that.
And this just shows you the difference between me and with him, is that he has very little expectation for me. I feel like I have a lot of expectations, and I don't think that that's always a guy girl thing. I think some of you are probably married to the guy that has a lot of expectations for himself and for how things function in the family. But Eric likes my hair blonde, brown, short, long, straight, curly. He doesn't care about how I decorate or what the house looks like or how much I weigh. He doesn't care about what kind of food I make or if the house is clean if I come home. There's a lot of those things that maybe you're living under, and I don't want to deny how you're feeling. But what we can control and what we can address is our current expectation. And maybe you're feeling let down by the pressure they're putting on you. Or maybe you're one that is putting a lot of pressure on them. And so I just want to speak to that because that's something I can speak to because that's me. I've had to learn a lot here and continue to. This is a conversation that I've had multiple times in several groups and in several coaching conversations this week is expectations. I think that there's a gap that happens between our expectations and our experience. And if you're a person who relies on and has an unhealthy attachment to your expectations, then you experience massive frustration in that gap. And so what I want to bring to you maybe is just a couple practicals as we close. That if you've got a gap of frustration because expectations aren't being met, maybe asking yourself, one, is this expectation, the meeting of this expectation, is it fulfilling an actual legitimate need? Like a need to feel loved, a need to feel respected, a need to feel significant and cherished by your spouse? Is it meeting that need? Is it meeting a need that isn't supposed to be met by your spouse, like certainty and security? Now, your husband or spouse can give you some of that, but not eternal joy, security, and certainty. And so really asking yourself, is this expectation going to meet a need? And if you can't boil it down to a specific need, then maybe it's just a preference. And then asking yourself, are they capable mentally, physically, spiritually, financially even? Are they capable of meeting this expectation? Like if your husband has a job that's on call, maybe he can't meet the expectation of being there for dinner all the time. Right. So maybe you have to compromise on some of that expectation. Maybe you've got somebody in your family, and this is outside of marriage, but maybe you've got somebody who's super, super wounded. And you would hope that because of their relationship, maybe it's a family member, that you would hope that they would be able to give you love. But maybe they're so wounded and so broken and they've not received love, they're not able to give it. So they're not capable right now. And so maybe you got to let that go. Of an expectation for them right now in this season. And then I think the third thing is, do you have an expectation in your head that has never turned into an agreement? Are you expecting something from them that you've never discussed really, except for like, why didn't you do that? have you talked about it in a sense of how it meets your need rather than honey-do list? Or I really want you to start doing this. Have you talked about it, about how it meets a need?
Right. In the right timing,
Yeah,
in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess lastly really is this expectation, the idea of preference, the idea of agreement is really you digging in and going, am I putting expectations into things because I need control? And because if I have control, I feel like it will make me happier. Do I have a false belief that the way that I picture things in my head is the only way and the only way that I'll experience joy? I think sometimes our expectations, even for God, are based on false beliefs. So I think that we really can't expect of our spouses, even the things that we've agreed upon, 100% of the time. Because there's nothing that you and I do 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And so we can't expect that from them 100% of the time. But I can tell you some expectations you can have 100% of the time. You can expect that God is love and everything he does for you and through you is motivated by love.
Good.
You can expect that he never lies and never breaks promises. So anything that he says to you in his word, you can hang on to that for you, for your marriage, and for your husband.
Yeah.
And then I think that you can expect that everything, even the yucky things in your marriage, all things will be used for your good and to give him glory, all of them. And you can expect those things 100%. They may not happen in the way or the timing or how you picture it, but it will happen. And so if we can train our eyes to see it happen and train our eyes to see God's goodness in those things, then I think we have a healthy expectation.
Yeah.
And maybe it would more accurately help us to see our husbands and not rely on them for the expectations that we can only have in God. Yeah.
That's really good. I just want to throw this in as well. I was thinking about it earlier, and this is my positive side that would say this to you. If you're questioning right now, or maybe thinking, man, we've got a lot of gaps, and we all do in our expectations, I would encourage you to take some time and write down the things that you are on the same page with. These are the expectations that we agree upon, that we are together in, because I'm guessing there's a lot, maybe even more, and hopefully more by the grace of God that you have that are not in sync, right? So we tend to want to focus on the expectations that aren't being met. What are the ones that are being met, right? That you're on the same page with. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take the ones that you do have some gap in and work on those, because I think we should, as Jamie pointed out, the ones that really would be this is the next step in the direction of we're working towards healthy love and preferring of each other, right? And so that'd be my encouragement maybe for you as this next step. If you're in that place of I'm frustrated, we've got gaps, write down some things and find some things, focus on some things that you are doing that you are on the same page with.
Yeah. And right along with that is when you make that agreement of, okay, he's going to do this, I'm going to do this, acknowledge every time that it's happening. Best if you can acknowledge it verbally. I'm not always good at that. I'll think it and he'll be gone, and then I won't remember to say it when he comes home. So I try to do it in a text or something if it comes into my mind so I don't forget. But I think acknowledging them out loud, even if it's just to yourself or just thanking God for the progress while it's in process, will give you hope for future. So marriages work, you guys. It is not just, by the grace of God, we just do it. I mean, it will only be by the grace of God, but you got to work. I mean, the statistic of 1 out of 2 marriages failing, that includes Christian people. That includes people that believe in God. So this is going to be by the grace of God, he will give us the things that we need, the tools that we need, but tools are used for work. And so sometimes we got to pull out some nails. We got to rework some stuff. We got to refinish things. We got to go at it and not give up.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Yeah. All right, you guys, we're going to let you go. It's a 30-minute talk now. So I hope that something is there for you that you can learn from, things that we've learned from. And it was good to be with you today. Serena, marriage is awesome. 10 years strong. Atta girl. I love it.
Go, Serena.
Yeah. Okay, you guys. Have a great day.
See ya.